Okay, this is going to be a bit of a dark video, honestly, because I wanted to actually rank the major gaming publishers who have been accused of workplace abuse in the past year or so and compare them to each other. I'm not doing this to genuinely diminish what happened. I'm not. I wanted to make that crystal clear, but with so many different publishers embroiled in scandal right now, it felt like a morbidly funny way to compare these companies because when it's not one or two, but four separate industry giants on the stage at the same time, it stops feeling like an outlier and starts feeling more like an actual part of the corporate culture. With that in mind, the same way people rank publishers in other categories as well, like video game achievement as one example, today I'm going to rank them on their handling of workplace abuse. I actually went back and forth on how to do these rankings for quite a while because there were two central possibilities. The first method was to be completely sarcastic. This would mean that the company who did things most horribly would be number one on the list, and the video would need to be viewed as more of an informative and dark joke more than anything else. The second possibility was to be completely serious, and that one might have a more conducive tone for the topic at hand, it honestly would, but it would lack pretty much all the entertainment value because many of these issues have been discussed at length by other channels and people, and for at least some, people are most likely a bit burnt out on the seriousness of it all. Ultimately, I decided not to take myself too seriously, so let's dive in. Honorable mention. Before we get to the actual players, I wanted to throw out an honorable mention for Quantic Dream. The studio was hit by toxic workplace allegations in 2018, but in 2021, they actually won their appeal and got that initial ruling overturned by an appellate court in France. Calling it a vindication for the studio after a smear campaign by the press and social media, Quantic Dream went on to say, quote, "These accusations, formally denied by the company, its managers, its staff representative, and its employees, and contradicted by the reality of objectively verifiable facts, seriously damaged the honor and reputation of the studio." End quote. While their controversy might have originated in 2018, and these are the rankings for 2021 after all, Quantic Dream has emerged victorious this year after refusing to back down for over 36 months. Hard fought, drawn out, and I have no fucking idea what the truth of the matter really is, but in the eyes of the law, they are now vindicated, earning them a spot as the honorable mention on our list for today. Alright, now for the heavy hitters. Number 4, Ubisoft. Ubisoft is an interesting story because Ubisoft is caught between actually doing something, reforming, then moving past it all, or alternatively, denying that there ever was an issue in the first place, covering it up, and moving past it all just the same. Unlike some of the other entries on our list who have taken a stand on one side or the other for better or for worse, Ubisoft is caught in the middle and seems to be flailing around mindlessly under the pressure. Officially beginning in 2020, hordes of employees began to come forward about abuses that they endured while working for Ubisoft, but the response? Well, the response was unworthy of being in the top 3 of our rankings, to say the very least. Ubisoft claimed that it was going to do all the things to help employees, and then it did none of the things to help, after basically dodging responsibility. The thing is, they basically did enough of the things after saying like, oh, we're going to do so much to help, and like making it a big deal and trying to be responsible, like big air quotes around that. I have no idea what they're thinking, but they did enough things to keep the candle burning, with new executive appointments, but not the most meaningful executive appointments. My favorite is how the CEO, Yves Guillemot, appointed his own cousin as the studio head in Montreal during all of this, plus a bunch of other concessions, but their own workers feel as if the company is placating them in an ineffective way, which means that they are keeping their own scandal alive by refusing to pick a lane. Who knows? Much like the number 1 entry on our list, Ubisoft could rise to the challenge in subsequent years, but right now they are failing to deal with their own allegations in a decisive enough way. So they get to be number 4, scoring, coincidentally, a 4 out of 10 for their efforts. Next up is Bungie. This is one where I almost did a dedicated video on the subject and still might for those interested, but for the list today, Bungie is number 3. Despite being the most recent competitive applicant to our list, Bungie actually has a pretty long track record of dealing with their own internal issues. In a massive report published by IGN very recently, where 26 current and former employees came forward, it was detailed how Bungie's narrative department, among others, that's not the only one, endured workplace abuses such as having papers thrown at them, and successfully stopping a few stereotypes from going into the story for Destiny 2. That was a bit of a joke. The report by IGN contained quite a lot, but it also indicated that much of these issues were kind of solved in 2019. Toxic workplace, insane development crunch, that part was really damning, etc., etc. And yet, despite this being an issue mostly born of conduct 2 years ago, it began to affect their contemporary schedule. CEO Pete Parsons had to weigh in, and I remember hearing something about an event that Bungie canceled, I think, not sure. I can't seem to find it now, but the point is, having previously been under the wing of Activision Blizzard until, go figure, 2019, Bungie was only entering the limelight because of a publicized report. They had also publicly distanced themselves from the culture at Activision Blizzard early on in that whole debacle, so they clearly weren't playing 4D chess here, else they would have kept their mouth shut, and depending on how you compose the rankings, they could be either number 3 or number 2. At least they picked a lane, unlike Ubisoft, and tried to change things. But for my scale, they're in 3rd place with a score of 7 out of 10. Next up, number 2. A lot of people are probably going to be surprised by this one, but hear me out till the end of the video and it will probably start to make sense. Number 2 is Activision Blizzard. But how? Their scandal is the worst. They should be number 1. Okay. Yes, Activision Blizzard is by far the highest profile and publicly severe situation in 2021. No question. But that's not the only thing that matters. However, this is their time to shine, so let's dive in. Activision Blizzard was rocked in 2021 by not one, but multiple lawsuits. They had subsidiary CEOs stepping down, replacements resigning after that, walkouts, unionization threats, chief legal officers departing amidst the bulk of everything, and more media scandals than I could possibly count. Kotaku went deep on their Cosby suite, where high-ranking devs would allegedly prey on young female coworkers. That was for Blizzard, one of their best studios. They hired an anti-union law firm for their third-party audit, which very well might have been a conflict of interest as well. CEO Bobby Kotick shadow drafted a letter, right? Like he wrote it and then pretended somebody else wrote it from their compliance officer. Like she did not actually write that letter, which caused employees to get even more upset. It was a really bad letter. And then got put under the microscope himself when it was outed by the Wall Street Journal that he probably knew about most of these things and ignored them on purpose. The SEC was involved, actually still is involved right now. The DFEH, various worker advocacy groups, shareholder advocacy groups, thousands of employees signing petitions, and the list goes on and on. There were even accusations at one point by the state of California that they were shredding evidence. And for most people, all of this should quite obviously land them at number 1 on the list, because I have never in my life witnessed a company implode faster and more severely than Activision Blizzard, but they're not number 1. Unlike Ubisoft, they picked a lane. They are now being accused of open union busting as they tell employees to, quote, consider the consequences, end quote, of signing a union card. And whether or not that's technically their actual motive, I have no idea. They are going full force down the path of make it worse. Because why would you send a clear-cut, thoughtful response in the beginning when you can have the CEO write a fake letter from the compliance officer and then have that letter basically say that all of it is bullshit when it's not bullshit, and you end up firing dozens of people very soon after while your share price craters? Most recently, Activision Blizzard has been put under a mega spotlight as the public called for statements at the VGAs, the Video Game Awards, and on a global stage, Activision Blizzard is being torn apart as the absolute paragon of workplace culture, abuse, and harassment. I didn't even touch on everything. There's so much more, but Activision Blizzard is coming in at number 2, scoring a 9 out of 10. So close to that perfect number, but maybe once in a while they weren't stupid enough and didn't aspire to be all they could be. Okay, finally, time for number 1. What could possibly top Activision Blizzard, and how in the world am I going to justify it? Here we go. Number 1, Riot Games. Before anyone clicks away from the video while rolling their eyes in frustration, hear me out. Riot Games is like the Kaiser Soze of workplace abuse and harassment. Plenty of people technically know that they had a run-in with these issues, but they simply didn't get covered the same way that these other companies did. Why? Well, because they get a 10 out of 10 on their scorecard for avoiding the problem entirely. In 2018, Riot Games was targeted by the very same organization that initially hit Activision Blizzard, the DFEH in California. The thing is, this lawsuit hasn't really gone anywhere. Originally, the whole thing was started by a group of former female employees, like 1,000 of them, no joke, who alleged numerous counts of sexual harassment and workplace abuse. It was pervasive, in their words, in that company. Riot Games, in an effort to mitigate possible backlash, settled with them for $10 million. Only after that point in time did the DFEH step in, claiming that $10 million just wasn't enough. It should actually be north of $400 million. And that's where the company really stepped up to the plate. For the remainder of 2018, all of 2019, all of 2020, and now all of 2021, Riot Games successfully brought things to an absolute standstill. It turned out that in 2019, Riot had reached secret settlement agreements with over 100 of those women, and then, the reason this counts for 2021, in August of 2021, after being completely unable to speak with these employees, the DFEH filed another action in the court system, attempting to force Riot into sending some sort of correspondence stating, "You absolutely can and should talk to the government about us." Yeah, it didn't work. The DFEH wanted copies of the secret settlements for like 18 straight months and didn't get them. Riot delayed again and again, even under direct court order, until the investigation had lost all of its media appeal. And all those women who secretly settled, yeah, I can't know for sure about every single one of them, but everything I could find points to them remaining completely silent on the topic, because whatever Riot said to them or paid them, it worked. Riot Games is number one on our list because we literally don't even know how bad things were. We don't know because they shut it down and almost killed the investigation outright. They spent 18 months in open defiance of the DFEH and successfully make Activision Blizzard look like a pre-bar exam drunk college student. Not enough to justify my choice? Okay. The legal firm for the plaintiffs in this lawsuit, the women who allege sexual harassment, pay gap discrepancies, etc., among many other things, was accused of colluding with Riot Games, their opposition, to undercut on the initial settlement number. The DFEH alleged that there were side deals and a reverse auction that took place because Riot Games had compromised the legal counsel of their opponent. And it wasn't just one government agency claiming such a thing, it was two. The DSLE jumped on board, the Division of Labor Standards Enforcement, to add their weight to the allegations, but none of it mattered because Riot Games just didn't break under pressure. Activision Blizzard imploded under the strain. They're still imploding. But Riot Games came through it all almost completely unscathed. They secretly settled with relevant parties in a way that basically removed them from the equation entirely. They defied orders for 18 straight months and refused to cooperate. They allegedly compromised an opposing law firm in the first place to save themselves some money. And they spent all of 2021, literally all of it, successfully minimizing the entire issue and avoiding the spotlight, unlike most of their peers. For those reasons, Riot Games is awarded the number one spot and a perfect 10 out of 10 score for their handling of these events. I'm not saying that I agree with them, right? I don't agree that it was a good way to handle things. I'm saying it because they are undeniably the most maliciously talented company on the stage completely this year when it comes to obfuscating, minimizing, downplaying, and successfully dodging their opponents. 2021 has been a year of many scandals, and who knows, maybe Riot takes center stage in 2022 when I do an eventual follow-up to this, but right now it's pretty obvious that while Ubisoft flails around aimlessly, kind of just making things worse for themselves while trying to solve the things that they're making worse, as Bungie gets torn down for things they pretty much already fixed, and Activision Blizzard just self-destructs under the pressure, Riot Games was in the background, really not in the public eye, the media cycle was not focusing on them, basically unaffected by all of it, and we don't even know how bad it was, which makes me think it was probably really, really, really bad to have like 100 women have secret settlements and then not talk about it. So Riot Games gets the award here. But that's it. If you liked the video, please consider supporting on Patreon or Locals. That's also where you can reach out to me directly for topic ideas, etc. Also, Odyssey, a YouTube platform alternative, is linked down below, where you can see my entire content library ad-free. That's an important part. There's another gaming YouTuber to check out, merchandise, social media, etc., etc. But I'll cut it there and stop rambling. As always, thank you all for watching, and have a nice night.